Hi and welcome to another Checiegirl Creations video. Now, this is the second part of this video, so if you haven't seen the first part of this video, please do follow the iCard in the top right hand corner and you can see just how I started this canvas board. So, I'm doing this canvas board using the Checiegirl Creations Mixed Media subscription box, and this is the launch box. And if you're interested, the summer box is now available to purchase, and you can also make multiple box purchases as well on my Ticktail site, and all those links will be below in the description. So this sponge, I'm using my warm yellow, cold yellow and white, and you can see first I'm just sponging on the paint, and I kind of wanted it to look a bit like the orange one on my far left, but then I decided to make it look a bit more hairy, so you'll see that later on. And because the color is so light, I ended up drying it in between stages just so I could make everything look a bit more opaque and I can cover up that purple brain coral behind it. So now that I've added another layer of yellow paint with the sponge, you can now see me trying to make some hairs on the sponge. So I'm just kind of brushing out the white paint on the outer edges to give it a kind of hairy texture. And I'm just working my way inwards, and then I'm going to add some yellow. So this is the cold yellow at the moment, and then I'll add some warm yellow. I'll just keep on adding layers until I'm happy with it, and then I can move on to the next sponge. Okay, so I've just finished drying the yellow one, and I'm going to go right next to it and put in a pink coral. And this one is quite a bit odd looking. I was trying to follow the pattern of the paper. It's stitched paper, and I'm just using my rose and my fluorescent pink and some white as well. So first I'm just sponging in, making sure to cover the paper, and I'm just kind of keeping the texture of the paper though. And then you'll see me kind of taking an approach I did to that dark yellow one on my right. So I was just trying to add some depth with the darker pink to make it look a bit like tubes, and I made it look a bit hairy as well, and you'll see that as I go along with the process using my paintbrush. So you can see I'm just adding those darker bits, and I kept on adding and adding and adding the layers until I was happy with it. There was quite a lot of taking away and adding and taking away and adding, but then I got the look I was going for in the end. can see here I just keep on trying to add definition with the darker pink, and because everything's still wet underneath, the darker pink is kind of mixing with the lighter pink underneath, so it doesn't look as stark as the dark bits in the middle. And you can see I'm just adding the hairs there, and then I'll go in with some white to add highlights and to pull everything together. Okay, so now I'm pulling out my paper flowers because I wanted to make them look like mini corals. So I'm just kind of placing them to see where I wanted to put them. And then once I'm happy with where they would go, I'm going to change the colors of them using my acrylic paints. And I'm just taking this ribbon and kind of folding it on itself, twisting it around itself to see if that would be a nice coral as well. So I'm using my hot glue, and I have to apologize for this. I stayed out of frame for most of this by accident. But I'm just literally folding over and over and around itself just to make a coral. And I guess this is kind of how you might make a flower ribbon. So every now and again you might see a bit of the ribbon. You can see I'm just kind of folding it over itself, trying to hide whatever hot glue might have been showing until I'm happy with how big it is. And then once I'm happy with its size, I'm just going to fold the ribbon underneath and stick it down, and then I'll cut it. And then you'll see me kind of moving it around the canvas board to see if I'm happy with the size and where it will go. And I'm just taking the pink ribbon and running it along that coral just to see what it will look like, but then I didn't like that, so I changed my mind on that. So I'm just cutting it there using some scissors, and now I'm going to move on to painting the flowers. So again, I'm going to be out of frame a little bit with this, but I'm just adding some gesso and red paint just to change the color of it a little bit. I'm getting all inside and all the creases of it because I kind of want to change the shape as well. And you'll see it a little bit better once I zoom in and start painting it with the sponge, because my fingers weren't able to get into the little creases. So I'm just sponging it there, just adding layers and more layers all over the top and the bottom. I'm just going to keep on adding layers and kind of folding the petals how I want them until I'm happy. So now I've just cut off the stem, and I was just kind of putting it on the canvas board to see that I liked where it was. And now I'm just colouring the ribbon a little bit with the blue. And I'm using the stem from the flower I cut it off from to kind of add some white spots, as you can see there. Just trying to add a little bit of texture to it. Okay, so I'm now moving on to my other flower, and for some reason the camera shut off at some point, so you did miss me just adding some yellow at the start. But now I'm just using the stem again from the previous flower and just adding white to it to give it more of a distressed look. I'm just kind of squeezing it with my fingers, distorting it a little bit. It's really quite making it quite thick. Okay, so I'm just finishing off my last flower, and you can see I'm just adding highlights, and I'm just really doing all of the flowers the same way as I did the others. And now I'm mixing together my warm yellow with my violet to add a bit of shadow, just to add to the flower I just did. And I did use the warm yellow and white on that flower as well. And then you'll see me just add a few dark spots to the blue ribbon coral I did earlier. So I'm just kind of lightening that brown, just adding it in a few places. And I'm also adding the darker blue as well. Okay, so now I'm getting out my two washies and a sheet of the paper, and I'm using that bunny paper because I don't really think I will use it for anything. I don't tend to do bunny related projects. So I'm just taking out this chevron washi and putting it down on the back, and you'll see me offset the pattern as well, just to give a little bit of interest. And I'll be using these to create some fishes, starfishes and shells, and I'll also do the exact same thing I'm doing with the chevron washi with the gold lace washi. Okay, so now I'm just really making sure to burnish everything down to make sure it's all stuck. And I've turned it over to do some quick sketches. So I'm doing a fish and a starfish. And I'm first using my white pen, and then I'll put the Sharpie over top. I just wanted to kind of practice the shapes I was doing before I committed and did a Sharpie. And when I'm sketching these out, I have to make sure I put them the opposite way to where I want them, since they're going to be flipped over when I cut them out anyway, because I'm just drawing on the back. So I'm going to do starfishes, shells and fishes. Okay, so now that they're all cut out, I can now give them all a light layer of gesso. So I'm just kind of applying that with my fingers, not too evenly, and I don't really want to cover up the pattern too much, so it is just a little light layer so that I can sketch on it a little bit easier, especially with the Uniball Signal white pen. Okay, so now I'm sticking down the ribbon coral and those flower corals with some hot glue, and I'm putting quite a lot just to make sure they all stay on, but also trying to hide it as well. I don't want to be able to see it from the front. And now I'm adding some doodles and highlights with my Uniball Signal pen. So I'm just kind of doodling some very loose circles on that red one there. And on most places I'll just add some sketchy lines and circles and some kind of squiggly lines along the sea and the water. And then I'll add some detailing with my Sharpie, so that'll just mostly be some sketchy lines around the coral. And I've just zoomed in a little bit so you can see a bit closer what I'm doing. Okay, so now I'm going with my Sharpie, and I don't know if you can notice, but I'm only going in with the Sharpie where there would be shadows. So underneath corals and where they would just be casting shade on each other. And I also do add the white and black pen because that just helps to ground everything, especially black. Black helps to ground things. So it's always best to add some kind of black to your art piece, whether it's in splats or doodles, however you want, or any other dark color. And you can see the lines are very sketchy and quite random. I don't want it to be too exact. So now that these are dry, I'm just going to add some detailing to them as well. So just outlining everything, adding the fins and a bit more details. And then once that's done, I can stick them down using some tacky glue. Now I'm just trying to figure out the placement with everything, and I'm putting some fishes swimming over the coral, as well as in the water and the sea kind of in the background, and just putting the starfish onto the corals and shells on the sand. And now I'm just getting my tacky glue and sticking down the fishes and shells and starfish where I want them. And you can see that some of the fish are facing in different directions as well. I didn't want them all facing the same way. Okay, so now I'm taking my viridian, blue mist and a little bit of white, and I'm going to water it quite a lot with some water, just some plain water, and I'm just mixing it together, just mixing it off away from the canvas so I don't get anything on it yet. And now I'm just going to loosely go over and cover everything so that it all looks like it's underwater. And I kind of discovered this technique when I was doing a page for the 2017 Artful Planner edition, and it was the turtle one, and I'll put a picture or something up so you can see it. And I really wanted it to look as if it was underwater, so I went all over with the blue paint and just gave it a good wash, and it looks more under the sea now. And then I added the highlights on afterwards, and I forgot I added the highlights on afterwards. So you'll see that once I've dried everything, I had to go back in with my white pen because the white pen isn't permanent, so the paint just washed everything away. But before I do that, I'm just adding some white splats and also add some light blue splats as well. And you'll see me just adding and kind of dabbing some away until I like how it looks. Adding some sketches around the edge of the canvas because I tend to rub the edge of my canvases with my StazOn ink pad, but since I didn't have that with me, I just decided to use a Sharpie as well, just to show you guys that you don't need an ink pad to do that. And then I'm signing the corner there. So that's my canvas finished. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you so much for watching. And as I said earlier, the summer box is now available to purchase in the links below, and you can get the summer box or get a multiple subscription box, and ordering a multiple subscription box will also mean you get some discounts. So you could order up to 4 boxes and it's a quarterly subscription box. So the next one, the summer box you'll get in June, and then the autumn one will be in September, the winter one will be in December, and then you'll wait next year until March for the spring box. So, thanks again for watching. Please do tell me what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again in another arty adventure. Bye!